Welcome everyone to AHR's IS Institute to the next installment of our GS mains analysis. So today we'll be discussing a lot about essay paper. The essay paper has just concluded, and what we've seen is that UPSC has continued with its trend of asking two essays, one essay from section A and the other one from section B. Now, what we also see is that there is a clever distribution of essays in terms of the topics that they have tried to cover. They have tried to cover women's empowerment. They have also asked about economy-based essays. They have also posed an essay about philosophy. So what we see is that there is a fair distribution, and essays are coming from all the topics, that is social topics, economic topics, as well as the new contemporary topics as regards digital connectivity is concerned. So this year's essay paper did not pose any surprises, shockers. What we see is that a continuation of trend, but it is essential, it is equally essential that we carry forward our discussion to analyze and evaluate this year's essay paper. So guys, you need to understand one thing, that essay paper is very critical to your selection or your rejection at UPSC. Why would I say that? It is a little more important than other GS papers, is because this is a paper wherein your articulation capacities and your craftsmanship as a writer come to the fore. Also, your thoughts which are replicated on the paper, their continuity and their coherence with the topics is generally checked in the essay paper. So therefore, this paper becomes essential, and therefore enough attention has to be focused and diverted towards this. Also, the fact that there is a very thin margin for error in this paper. Why would I say that? Is because you have to write two essays. That means basically you have to write two long answers. Now, since you have to write only two long answers, your risks are not fairly distributed, because in other GS papers you are writing 20 answers. Here you would be attempting two topics. That would mean that even if one of the topic derails, or if you end up flunking in the second one, it would definitely have a detrimental impact as regards your scores are concerned. Obviously, we don't want that. We want both of our essays to score marginally better than the average decent score, right? So the objective here is to score in excess of 70 or at least in excess of 60 in both the essay papers. It is not an uphill task. It is not something which cannot be achieved, but yet therefore it requires a systematic preparation. It requires a lot of planning and strategy, and once you plan and strategize properly, your essay preparation becomes complete. Now, what do I mean when I say essay preparation? Essay preparation has to be in consonance with your GS mains preparation. That would mean ideally one should write at least one essay from this week onwards. So that would mean that you would have a repository of at least 50 to 60 essays in your next year mains. Okay, so these are the essays well thought out, well researched and backed by content and put down on paper by you. Trust me, this exercise will help you a great deal in maximizing your effort at UPSC Mains 2017. So having said all this, let me start with the first essay. We'll be discussing essays in two installments, guys. So four essays would be discussed in this. So we begin with the first essay. The first essay is, if development is not engendered, it is endangered. Obviously, this is a clever wordplay by UPSC, because it is talking about development, but it is talking about development from a gender perspective. Okay, so they are saying that if gender perspectives are not included, development suffers a great deal. Now you are supposed to do what? You are supposed to substantiate this statement, and you're supposed to advance your thoughts based on this statement. You're supposed to explore various ideas. You're supposed to include all the social, cultural, economical and political factors that have marred the development process, that have also kept the women out of the mainstream. You should also talk about how women are instrumental towards the development of an economy. Okay, so this is a fairly simple topic. All of you in the society part of your GS paper 1, you must have studied about women empowerment, and you must have studied about some gender studies which have been conducted on the world platform as well as in India. Okay, so basically the frame of this essay, or the framework or the superstructure of this essay, I would say, is essential. Not just for this essay, for every essay, your frame is almost about essential. So I would suggest that you don't start away with the writing part. It is essential that you jot down your points on a piece of paper. You get a rough worksheet, you do your rough work, you decide on the flow of your essay, you decide on the current of thought, and then you decide a central theme for your essay. You decide what goes into the introduction part, you decide what goes on into the body part, and you also very carefully design your conclusion in a way that it gives a positive outlook as well as a vision statement. This is something that is required, and this is, I would say that there's no blueprint for getting high marks in essay, but it is one of the ideal way to approach your essay paper. So moving along, what does this statement mean? See, I advise all of you to keep a piece of paper at hand and also a pen, so that as I move along and as I start talking about it, once the discussion is over, you can pause the video and you can take down those points. Don't think that these essays will not come in handy in your next year's exams. Who knows, maybe they'll ask the same topics in your GS paper. Therefore, it is essential that you consider this analysis as your preparation for next year's exams. Okay. So moving along, see, women's development की बात जब होती है तो सबसे पहली तो बात होती है कि leadership position में women नहीं है आज के डेट में. If you look at the corporate leadership also, corporate leadership comprises of a very significantly small portion of women. Also at the same level, political leadership की अगर हम बात करें तो women again are not at the forefront. Very recently we have seen that we had a chance that a woman, US could have its first women president in the form of Hillary Clinton, but fortunately or unfortunately, we have Mr. Donald Trump who is going to be the incumbent in the office now. So having said that, what I want to tell you is that corporate leadership or political leadership or women in critical administrative positions or women in areas of jurisprudence are very few and far in between. Yes, obviously because there is a glass ceiling, we still say that the mainstreaming of women has not happened in the professional and the formal sector. What we have seen is that women are still relegated to household chores, women are still confined to their bedrooms, and women, even though they are working, there is a threshold limit to which they can achieve their success. Beyond that, climbing up the corporate ladder or the political ladder it becomes a little difficult for them. Now there is a variety of factors responsible for this stifling of women's growth, and these variety of factors should go into your essays. What are these factors that are leading to such disparity in gender success? Okay, gender discrimination is not just a concept restricted to India. Gender discrimination is something which is omnipotent phenomena associated with all the global economies. What we have seen is all the global world economies, developed economies also actually are just vociferous commentators of women empowerment, but when it actually comes to translating that policy on paper, even they fail. Okay, so we need to understand that we need to respect women first, because a woman is the starting point of life, and if the woman is the starting point of life, she deserves her due respect. And if you believe in giving a man his due, you should believe in giving a woman also her due. So women, in spite of being the genesis of life, in spite of being the cradle of life, don't enjoy the same status in society as men do. So first and foremost, respect has to be extended towards the gender. Now let's look at that. If women comprise about 50% of the demography of the planet, that means that the productivity of 50% of people on this planet is stifled and saddled with a lot of social and economic and political restrictions. So this is a huge burden on humanity, isn't it? Yeah, because when 50% of the workforce is left out of the mainstream, when 50% of the workforce is not guaranteed special rights and privileges, obviously we will see that translating into the global economy, that translating into the global political landscape, and also how it corrodes the social fabric. It is women who are responsible citizens. What we have seen is, देखिए बहुत सिंपल सी बात है, ये आपने कई बार सुनी होगी, क्लीशे है, शायद थोड़ा स्टीरियोटिपिकल लगेगा कहने में, मगर it is as important and as relevant in today's context. We look at prisons. The amount of women or the number of women in prisons is very few, but the amount of women begging on streets is very high on the other hand, right? So women are exploited when it comes to begging. Begging is a subjugated existence, subjugated human existence, and since they are physically weak than men, they are exploited. At the same time, if you look at women, they are the ones who are ecologically sensitive. They are more keen to adopt environment friendly techniques. You must have seen your mother also working in her kitchen garden. Why? Is because women by nature are judicious. Okay, so when there is a scarcity of resources, a woman is well disposed of because of the way she is biologically hardwired to tackle a situation in a better economical manner. Okay, so we've seen that, and they are ecologically sensitive, they are environment friendly. The issues of conservationism are readily accepted by women also, but at the same time, since they are weak, they are exploited, right? So the number of criminals, if you look at the crime bureau records, number of women criminals is very less, number of women in prison is also very less, right? So women by their very nature are inclined or are ethically more sound, I would say. The moral compass of women is also well aligned with the morals of the planet, or morals of the, or what you can say, universal morals. Okay, so therefore mainstreaming women, or gender mainstreaming as they say, has to become an integral part of our development process. We cannot just rampantly go about tom-tomming our efforts for growth and development. We just cannot indulge in a mad race, in a mad rush to grow and think about in numbers. We should also make sure that human development takes place as regards women are also concerned. As I said, women is the source of birth, women is the genesis of life. Therefore, the health of women is equally important, right? And when I say that the health of women is equally important, the indicators or the metrics on which that is based upon is infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate. The prevalence of diseases in the developing world is very high, and also the status of women in the developing world is inferior to men. So what we see is that nutrition is not accorded its given importance in a mother's or a woman's life. Also the fact that education is sacrificed, also the fact that other health requirements and nutrition requirements are also at a are also not kept at a premium, right? So jahan pe a mother is unhealthy, obviously the child is going to be unhealthy. Obviously maternal mortality rate will suffer, infant mortality rate will suffer. We'll have more instances of stillbirths and live births. All this means that development will also be impeded, because prevalence of diseases and the way these diseases affect our newborns and affect our infants goes a long way in ensuring that the health expenditure is very high. Also the overall productivity of the working population comes down, right? Frequent visits to hospitals and primary healthcare centers also means that a lot of labor productive time is taken up. All these things contribute to lower productivity and lower labor force participation in the economy, and when that happens, the numbers come down. So development actually suffers when a woman suffers. Yes, development suffers overall also when the men of the society suffer, but a woman is the life source of all the people in this world. And therefore I would say that ensuring medical facilities, ensuring literacy, ensuring access to higher education, ensuring access to banking facilities becomes indispensable to our growth process. Now moving along, we need women leaders in the world today. We need compassionate and resolute leaders. Now what we see as regards the G7 or the G8 groupings, we see that only Angela Merkel, the German Vice Chancellor, is the only notable leader or a political leader in the global developed world or in the Western developed world. And Germany is at the forefront of ensuring a vibrant healthy and a robust democracy. Why would I say that? It's because what will happen in the US after this is a matter of concern. I wouldn't want to comment on Donald Trump's ability to run US, ability to be the president of United States of America. That is something that time will tell, but at the same time, we should also look at the fact that Britain has exited. So Britain is not a part of EU. Now the only viable and the only pragmatic world force that is left is Germany, wherein some semblance of a Western liberal democracy is left, right? And therefore it is essential that Germany continues on its chart of progress and development by ensuring, at the same time, ensuring indicators of human development. It is not a mere coincidence that Angela Merkel has been the Vice Chancellor of Germany since so many years and continues to do so, right? So, in her case study, we can see that it is amply demonstrated that women are completely and fully capable as political leaders, and therefore, there is a great requirement for women in all spheres of life. Very recently, we have also seen the example of 3 women pilots being inducted into the Indian Air Force. Now, this is a pleasant step. This is a step that is commendable and therefore should be widely accepted and widely appreciated and widely circulated in all spheres of professional life. Is because women will add value. Human development also is based upon how you move up the value chain. Okay. Now, women will add value at every stage of production, at every stage of employment, and also at every stage of innovation. Women scientists are now coming up in huge numbers, but we've seen that since the beginning that women are no less than men when it comes to research and development. We can see that in the example of Marie Curie. We can see that example closer back home in the nature how Savitribai Phule was at the vanguard of women's education in India, right? So we've seen that women have willpower, women have the required and the requisite dedication, they are doggedly determined, and they are single-minded about their purpose. I'm not trying to generalize all these attributes and apply them over the entire gender, but I'm talking about the law of averages. I'm taking the refuge of law of averages. And I would say that yes, women are definitely better predisposed than men, right? Women are good at juggling, so multiple tasks can be easily handled by women because they are, as I said, they are biologically hardwired like that. So there are some natural factors also which go in favor of women. But what we have seen is that women have been relegated or women have been given token positions. Now when that happens, obviously the development process will be impeded. Here guys, you need to also mention in your essay what is development. You need to understand the difference between growth and development. See, growth is always measured in numbers. So growth is a quantitative aspect. All of us know that. And development is a qualitative aspect, because development also takes into account how that growth has translated and has filtered down to the lowest rate of the society and how it has touched all the sections of the society, women being one of the sections, right? And therefore we have devised Millennium Development Goals. We have 8 Millennium Development Goals, and now we are coming up with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, right, with 179 sub-targets. So SDG 5, it actually talks about respecting women, it actually talks about mainstreaming women, and therefore I can safely say that even in the global narrative, the women empowerment as an issue or the emancipation of women is taken into consideration and has been explicitly mentioned in SDG number 5, right? So women have also been at the forefront of cottage and small industries in India. We can see that in the case of Lijjat Papad also, right? So women are enterprising by nature. Their inherent skills should be upgraded, their skills should be updated, and their skills should be adequately marketed. Marketing of their skills has not been done, has not achieved the required levels of penetration, is because too much focus has been on men. We are a male-dominated society. We are a patriarchal society. So obviously all the focus, all the razzmatazz, and all the daredevilry is associated with males in the society, whereas women have been conditioned to think that they are inherently weak. Women and men are in fact conditioned to think that they are supposed to take care of women. They are supposed to provide for the women of the house. But this ideology or this line of thinking has to change now. Obviously this has to change is because we need women to be a productive part of the society. We need women because they are capable actually of handling their own affairs. It is time that we change that line of thinking. But at the same time, adequate safeguards should be put into place. There should be enough checks and balances which will make sure that women are not sacrificed at the altar of sexual assault. Women don't have to suffer domestic violence. Women get additional and adequate nutrition during their pregnancy. Women get the benefits of taking leave from work. Very recently, we had a progressive legislation which states that 26 weeks of maternity benefit will be granted towards women. Now, this is a very positive sign. Many corporates and many multinationals are in fact going one step ahead and extending that maternity benefit. Also, women are paid for that leave. Therefore, it doesn't become a leave without pay, and that ensures that the career of a woman is not set back by a couple of years, which has happened in a number of cases, right? Also, women, as I said, community initiatives and links to sustainable development are two pillars of engendering women. Why? It's because we've already discussed how women are more sensitive about the environment, how they readily accept and absorb the concept of conservationism, and how they are compassionate towards other living beings as well. And therefore, to promote sustainable development, it is essential that we develop leadership programs at all levels, at the panchayat level in India, at the state level, and at the central level. If I talk about the global platform, we should also talk about developing women leadership at the community level as well, because women do have this tendency and do have this inherent ability to be aware of their surroundings. When one is aware of their surroundings, they become fully functional and they become fully capable of handling the incumbent issues, right? So these are some of the things that should go into your essay, right? You talk about creativity and innovation also. Now there's another essay which talks about innovation, but here in this essay we can talk about innovation and how innovation should be seen as an exercise wherein women also become equal stakeholders. So research and development, when funds are given for research and development, actually it is seen that it is the male scholars or the male fellows which get more scholarship, whereas women scholars and women fellows, they are merely seen as associates and they are not seen as people who will add value to the scientific development and technological advancement in the society. Now this grain of thought also has to change. Therefore, we should also have a new education policy in which women are made equal stakeholders as regards PhD or postdoctoral research is considered or is concerned. Therefore, I would say that it is essential that women become an integral part of general everyday life and they actually should be in the driver's seat. You can also talk about Mrs. Sandberg, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. Yeah, there are some other notable examples as well. So, sprinkle your answers or sprinkle your essays with a little bit of examples also. Illustrate your thought process by taking the advantage or taking the help of the examples. This will embellish your essays, this will ornament your essays, and your essays will become more hard-hitting and more clear in their approach, right? So, you can also talk about how urbanization has actually led to the disempowerment of women in the villages, especially in the Indian context. Now, why I talk about disempowerment and why I talk about urbanization? Because of urbanization and because of marginal land holdings, a lot of male folks have been magnetized towards the urban centers in the hope and in the quest for finding better employment opportunities. Also, since agriculture is dependent on monsoon in India, what we see is that a lot of times drought and famine situations necessitate that male folk move out of their house and then find alternative sources of employment. And in the midst of all that, they find themselves in the clutches of money lenders and contractors living in the urban setup. But what happens is the woman is left behind in the village. Now she is saddled with the double burden or the added responsibility of not just taking care of her children and nurturing them, but at the same time tending to the fields. Now when the woman has to tend to the fields, obviously it will be physically taxing for her. Why? Is because nature has ordained that women are physically weaker than men. That is one distinction that nobody can deny. I know that there are women wrestlers, there are women sports persons, but on an average speaking, a male is physically stronger than a woman. Now what happens is mechanization has not hit Indian agriculture yet, and because of that, women have to actually carry out labor intensive and physically driven activities. Obviously the yield, per acre yield or the per hectare yield will go down, right? When the per hectare or the per acre yield goes down, it actually reflects poorly in the agricultural productivity. Now ye hua kyun tha is because of distress migration. Okay, so urbanization in a large way is also responsible. Now for that, how do we tackle that? We need to tackle that with diversification of manufacturing. In another lecture also I have told you, in a lecture, I think it was about GS Mains 1 ka evaluation. In that also I told you that GST will probably and hopefully bring an era of diversification of manufacturing, which will create a lot of local demand, which will create local employment opportunities, and therefore it will probably address, let's hope that it addresses the situation of distress migration. So that now what happens is women will be, that burden will be shared, and the woman will be better able to take care of her own children, and children are the future of any society. This goes without saying, right? Obviously that means that women have to be in the prime of their health, they have to be in the prime of their mental health also, right? It is better that they stay with their spouses, it is better that they stay with their husbands, so that any kind of depression or any kind of mental ailment could be taken care of. Okay, so these are some of the things when you have to talk about engendering women. Also you can include an element of demographic dividend, कि कैसे demographic dividend हमारा rise होता है if we try to go for gender mainstreaming, right? So these are some of the things that you should definitely involve in your essay. And I have always told you that last 3 years prelims papers and last 3 years mains paper, their evaluation is very important, because last year in prelims in 2015 they had asked you something about the Beijing Declaration. Now what is the Beijing Declaration? The Beijing Declaration and the platform for action is about a gender mainstreaming. Now the gender mainstreaming concept is about creating a blueprint for advancing gender equality, right? So here what we see is that even on the global forums, even on the global forums, we have discussions oriented towards the empowerment of women. So that is an issue which is at the forefront along with other pressing issues like climate change and terrorism. So you also have the flagship UN Women Organization. You can also talk about UN Commission on the Studies of Women, which is the principal intergovernmental body responsible for the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women. Right. Now there are proven synergies between the capacities and capabilities of women and the kind of growth that we can achieve. There are many countries which have given credence and credibility to women, especially Western European countries. You can talk about Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden and Finland. Also you can talk about Hungary, wherein a lot of political leadership is shared with the women, a lot of corporate leadership, you see a lot of women in the corporate leadership also, in the higher levels of corporate leadership. Therefore you can see that these are the countries which score very heavily and which are generally topping the global indexes like the ease of doing business or the global competitiveness index or the global corruption index released by Transparency International. So what we see is that women can play an important role in all spheres of life, which includes social, political and economical also. Now let's look at the cultural aspect of women leadership, or the cultural aspect, how is it affected in a positive manner if we engender women. When we talk about cultural aspects, when we talk about cultural ethos, we talk about the evolution of a civilization, and the evolution of a civilization is also based upon visual arts, is also based upon classical literature, is also based upon academic scholarship. In all these three arenas, what we see is that women are again performing exceptionally and brilliantly well, right? So therefore it is time that women become the harbingers of the next cultural innovation or the next cultural renaissance. That we have more women thinkers, we have more political thinkers, we have more women who are introducing or who take the responsibility of introducing the various aspects of art and culture on the global platform, right? So it has also, some studies have also been conducted and there is empirical evidence involved in this, which suggests that if the pay scales of women are brought at par with the pay scales of men, it will go a long way in establishing a higher levels of GDP. So I need not say, this is a foregone conclusion and I need not emphasize more on how women should be made a integral part of our working culture, okay, right. So as I told you about the sustainable development goal, it talks about achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls, right. You can also talk about the gender action plan initiated under the auspices of European Union. You can also talk about the Addis Ababa Action Agenda of the 3rd International Conference on Financing for Development. Women's empowerment, it says, is vital for sustainable development. Okay. Also, there is chronic underinvestment in gender equality, which is aggravated by austerity measures adopted by many countries in the post-crisis context. We have seen the Greek crisis, we have seen the subprime mortgage crisis. In such crisis, what happens is that capital that is available for human development is scarce, and when that happens, who suffers first? Actually, it is the women, because budgetary allocation for women development suffers in this area, right? Now that should not be the case, and therefore more investment is required as regards development of women, nourishment of women, and grooming of women is concerned at all levels. You can also talk about Panchayati Raj elections in India, how women have been empowered, but you can also include a concept called as the Sarpanch Pati, जहाँ पे औरत को स्थान तो मिल जाता है, but beyond that, it is the husband who is taking care or who is the one who is making decisions for the woman. Okay, so such practices have to be done away with. Such practices have malified intentions, and therefore we need some more checks and balances in the form of constitutional amendments or in the form of provisions which are already embedded in the constitutions, and also in the form of the change of mindset. Now I come to the last part of this essay, and which talks about the change of mindset. Okay, a change of mindset is absolutely essential, is because no matter how you bring about economic reforms, political reforms, but social reforms precede economic and political reforms, and social reforms are the ones which will actually directly address women's issues, and therefore the change in mindset is absolutely essential. It is the males of the house, the responsible members of the house, who should appreciate the presence of a woman around them, who should encourage the woman to go out of the house and also chart her own career, and not just her own career, but also imbibe within her the elements in the aspects of climate change, the elements in the aspects of ecological sensitivity, innovation, creativity, compassion, and honesty. आज तक we have not seen women as responsible citizens. We have only seen women more like a liability than an asset. But in totality, what we see is that women are more of an asset than a liability if given a right platform. So it is time that we put them on a pedestal. It is time that they are empowered through various global action plans, through a change in mindset, through change in local policies, through restructuring your economy, through making financial inclusion a reality, and so on and so forth. So such essays will require you to go through a systemic approach. So with this we come to the conclusion of first essay. Guys, I have given you only a drop of the ocean that I have. There are so many other things that I could have told you regarding this issue, but there is a paucity of time, not just here in the lecture, but also while you write your exams, and therefore, and since you have to also honor the word limit, I would restrict myself and my ideas to this. Also, it is not necessary that I have given you all the fodder points. There are many other points that you could skim out from the internet. Therefore, I would suggest you to actually make a frame for this essay, make some points and keep it as a note for future references. Now moving along. Fourth essay, which talks about innovation is the key determinant of economic growth and social welfare. This is a very interesting one. Why? Is because we read a lot of articles these days, and almost all the articles are talking about new schemes, new programs, new policies which are being introduced, new technology which is being used, new tools which are being introduced, new techniques, new ways of labor force participation, and so on and so forth. So what we see is that the bedrock or the foundation of every article or the foundation of every piece of news finds itself in the realms of innovation. There is some bit of innovation going on here and there. Right now I am talking to you. Generally speaking, what happens is a tutor talks to you while being physically present in the class. Look at how we are interacting, guys. We are interacting through a video lecture, right? This looks fairly regulation today, but had you asked me the same question 10 years ago, I would have said that this is a far-fetched dream. So isn't this innovation? I'm getting across to you on an online platform. That's again some kind of innovation that we are seeing today, right? So the question statement or the essay statement goes, innovation is the key determinant of economic growth and social welfare. Now they are talking about innovation being a key determinant. So innovation also could mean that it is almost indispensable to the growth process or indispensable to social welfare, right? Now why is the need for innovation? Why is there so much of stress on innovation these days? Why? I'll tell you. It's because the world is changing at a faster and a rapid pace. The world is changing at such a fast pace that today's technology becomes absolutely redundant tomorrow, right? We've seen that in the case of smartphones, we've seen that in the case of smart TVs, we've seen that in the case of even IC engines, internal combustion engines, right? So basically innovation actually is not just the key determinant, innovation is actually a key driver, and innovation could become indispensable, almost, in fact it has become indispensable to the growth process today, right? So why has this change occurred? Is because today we are saddled or we are facing or confronted with some unique challenges. The world is experiencing some unique problems which weren't there or which were there in some faint measure 20 years ago. So what we have experienced in this new century is the onslaught of terrorism, right? We've also seen that climate change is actually rearing its monstrous head. Global warming is actually affecting our day-to-day lives. Just today I read a news regarding how 13 teachers very unfortunately lost their lives in Punjab because of a road accident. Now that was because of lower levels of visibility because of dense fog, right? So road accidents are also happening because of global warming and climate change, isn't it? And therefore it becomes almost mandatory upon us to consider innovation as the next challenge or innovation as the next key and the only determinant of economic growth and social welfare, right? अब ऐसे इसमें आपको you have to give a rationale for the innovation strategy. Now the rationale I have already given you. It talks about climate change, terrorism, sustainable development, population explosion, right? And also talk about automation, because आज के डेट में क्या हो रहा है कि because of the advent of machine learning and advancements in automation, many jobs are being taken away, right? Because machines are taking over. When machines take over and when livelihoods are at concern, when livelihoods are in danger, you have to create alternate sources of employment. Now creation of those alternate sources or those alternate avenues of employment will require one to be innovative and creative, right? Ingenuity of mind and erudition of thought is almost about indispensable to today's growth process and also to secure the objective of welfareism, okay? Therefore I would say you can give some examples like smart city, make in India, okay? You can also talk about Pragati, this is a government platform. This talks about pro governance. This is a pro governance app which gives you a real time measure of how the government's flagship schemes are proceeding. Likewise, there are so many other applications as well. Okay, like you have Namami Gange plan. In that, some battalions, territorial armies are recruited. Now, geographical information systems are being used. Okay, to actually monitor, superintend, and supervise the implementation of so many policies and programs at the ground level. So what we see is that technological intervention and advancement is driving our growth process, and at the same time is securing our welfare objectives as well. Technology or the penetration of internet and the need to embrace smartphones has become almost a second nature or a way of life today. Why? Is because we're making cashless transactions, we're making cashless payments, we are making there are so many online booking services available today, right? And we are, in fact, online shopping has become the new age phenomena. So when all of this is happening on the back of disruption. इस ऐसे में जिसने disruption लिख दिया उसका ऐसे पार हो गया समझ लो. Why would I say this? Is because disruption has found a lot of space in the print media today as well as in the digital media today. Now what is disruption? Disruption, by the very meaning of this term, means something that you discontinue, something that you change the course of, right? That is disruption. What is e-commerce? E-commerce is disruption as regards how we conduct our shopping. Because today you don't have to physically go or visit to the nearest mall. You can easily shop online. Now e-commerce websites like Amazon, eBay, and closer back home Flipkart have brought about a revolution through disruption. So e-commerce websites are nothing but disruptive in nature. Likewise, you have disruption in so many other aspects of life, right? Google is talking about a driverless car. Obviously, when Google is talking about a driverless car, it is talking about a major disruption on how we communicate or how we use our personal transport, right? And that could also find its way into public transport. There are automatically guided airplanes today, right? There are drones also which are used for making pizza delivery services, right? There are drones which are used for making as a reconnaissance aircraft or as an aircraft to surveillance. Drones are also used for bombing the interior parts. Especially, we've seen in the Syrian situation how Russia has bombarded the ISIS out of its existence, right? So this innovation is also helping us tackle terrorism, right? It is common knowledge that the communication satellites of India were actually responsible for the surgical strike. बहुत हमने पेपर में पढ़ा कि surgical strike, मगर ये surgical strike होता क्या है? Surgical strike is basically a strike which has no collateral damage, where no trace is left. That means you need to have an exact understanding of the enemy location. The coordinates of your enemies have to be conveyed to you in an exact manner. And it is the information satellites that India has put into the space which gave the information to the army, and subsequently it was passed on to the commando unit which carried out that surgical strike. So right from terrorism to shopping, it is innovation, it is disruption of the way we thought, the way we conducted our everyday lives, the way we conceived ideas. So innovation has become a key driver on how we are going to proceed ahead, right? So ये अगर आप सारी चीजें लिखेंगे तो that will become a good, it will become a sort of a point, or it will become a sort of an input for the examiner also, that you've understood the concept, that you're not just mindlessly writing कि मेक इन इंडिया है, स्टैंड अप इंडिया है, स्टार्टअप इंडिया है, इनोवेशन की जरूरत है, क्रेडिट फैसिलिटीज होनी चाहिए, इंक्लूजन होना चाहिए, कैशलेस पेमेंट की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं. ये सारा चीजें आप माइंडलेसली लिखोगे, मगर इनका सिंथेसिस ऑफ थॉट होना चाहिए. हाउ टू मेंटेन कंटिन्यूटी इन योर एसे is I'm trying to tell you, right? So this is something that you should incorporate in your essays. Flow and continuity should be visible in your essays, right? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that mention innovation as the step brother or the brother of disruption, because these two things go hand in hand. You can also talk about the new age phenomenon of Internet of Things. You all must have talked about or heard about the Internet of Things, wherein things are connected on an online platform or on a virtual platform, right? When the car itself will decide where the next gas station is located and how much time would it take to reach there and how many gallons of fuel or how many liters of fuel does it require. You can talk about all these things. You can talk about why is innovation also very important as regards safeguarding our environment is concerned. Now, why would I say that? I'm saying this is because, like India, many countries have submitted their intended nationally determined contributions. We have pledged our climate change initiatives or our climate friendly initiatives. We're talking about producing 175 gigawatts of energy just from the renewable sources, right? That would include 100 gigawatts of energy from solar sources and about 60 gigawatts of energy from wind. Now these, so if you talk about solar technology or if you talk about wind power, it requires huge capital investment, right? Now innovation is required here also, because you want to economize the cost of the equipment, you want to economize the cost of photovoltaic cells, right? Now how do you achieve that? Is by putting in more money into research and development, right? So here also you can talk about innovation and how it is paving the way for clean development mechanisms, how technology transfer will find its roots in innovation. So innovation actually becomes almost indispensable. Innovation is the buzzword now. It is going to drive the global economy, okay? You can also talk about demonetization. That's also innovation in the arena of economics. Now I don't want to comment on the merit or the demerit of demonetization as a policy, but obviously one can easily safely say that yes, it is one of the most creative policies or one of the most creative tools being used to sniff out black money and to move towards a cashless economy. Now whether that actually happens is something that time will tell, but till then let's just hope that this innovative strategy by the government, this finds fruition or bears fruits in the future. So such things can also be mentioned. When you talk about economy, you can also talk about the gold monetization scheme. You can also talk about real estate infrastructure trusts, right? ये क्या हो रहा है? Gold monetization scheme में क्या हो रहा है? Basically, जो gold India में आता है, that is used for ornamental purposes, for bejewelling purposes, right? It is not used as an asset. It is not used as a commodity for further investments. It is used as a dead, it becomes a dead asset because the women of the house will only wear that piece of jewelry only on special occasions. Now government has come up with a gold monetization scheme where you don't have the physical ownership of that gold. You buy that gold and you keep it with the bank. At the end of the maturity period, which could be 3 years, which could be 5 years, which could be 7 years, or which could even be 15 years, you'll get the appropriate amount of gold or at the prevailing gold rates. So obviously you have made some money here by investing in gold, and also for the amount of time that gold was deposited with the government or the banks, they could use it for other purposes like paying back the loans taken internationally, or also to going for higher public capital expenditure to create more infrastructure, right? So this is how the government is also thinking in an innovative fashion. RBI is also thinking in an innovative fashion, and how innovative strategies could help leverage the benefits of investment instruments like gold. Also हमने देखा कि since India is the largest importer of gold in the world, the import bill of India also rises. Already the import bill is heavily burdened with oil and other associated commodities. If you load up the cost that has to be paid for gold, then obviously it shoots the roof, and the current account deficit also goes up and the foreign exchange reserves are eroded. Such things can also be included in your answer. When you talk about innovation, you talk about new age development, you talk about new age strategies, okay? So this is a very interesting essay, and I think that there is a lot of fodder already available with you to write this essay. Now what this essay requires is a little bit of understanding and things that you can introduce, like you can talk about the National Innovation Council. which was founded under the chairmanship of Mr. Sam Pitroda. Sam Pitroda is considered to be the father of telecom revolution in India. So you have a National Innovation Council, which comes under a government department, and therefore the government itself has taken up the mandate of furthering the growth and development through innovation. And not just that, welfareism also, as I talked about Pragati, as I talked about, you can, when you talk about welfareism, you can also mention National Agricultural Universities, you can also talk about ICAR, you can also talk about pilot projects which are instigated and instituted at the college level. You can talk about IITs and IIMs wherein research is conducted, incubator cells, you can talk about seed funding, angel investment. So in this arena of education also, there is a lot of scope for innovation, but it requires huge investment, and that is why budgetary allocation for innovative strategies should be there. Okay. So NIC, National Innovation Council, also has sectoral innovation councils, wherein they separately focus upon primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector as well. So you can mention that in your answer. You can talk about how India is developing a national geographic information system. Now when you talk about a national GIS, you are talking about integrating the entire optical fiber network with the GIS, and that will help to a great extent in actually fostering enabling environment for the agricultural sector and the farm laborers also, because they will get real-time inputs on the availability of credit, they will get real-time inputs on the prevailing prices in the commodity market, they will also get real-time input on the onset of monsoons, right. So to be very honest, there is so much that I can tell you on this topic again, right. So we need a reform agenda, we need to realign and recalibrate all our policies with the objective of innovation. Also the fact that corporate investment should not be crowded out, corporates should heavily invest in research and development capacities and developing those capabilities. So as I said, the government plays a direct role in fostering innovation, right, and it can also set up entrepreneurship cells. So you can talk about, there is a concept called as innovation economics. Now what is this concept? It talks about entrepreneurship and innovation. Also the fundamental tenets of innovation economics are higher productivity through greater innovation, and also not just the market should not only be restricted to input resources and price signals. These should not be the two basic fundamentals. There should be also an element of how is it environment friendly and how is it going to improve sustainable development, right. So innovation economics के बारे में भी आप बात कर सकते हैं. Then you can talk about political will, political leadership. You can talk about IPR, intellectual property rights, how they should be aligned well with the new age development, and how new researchers and developers should get adequate protection. You can talk about the trade-related intellectual property rights under the WTO framework. You can also talk about intellectual assets and development of those intellectual assets, right. So incorporate all these things in your essay when you write your essays. So mention challenges, mention threats, mention the limits. Talk about Elon Musk, guys. I am personally a big fan of Elon Musk, is because he is the one who is changing the definition of innovation. He is talking about hyperloop technology, wherein you would be transported from point A to point B in a tube of vacuum. So it talks about how Mumbai-Pune distance will be reduced to 20 minutes. Now Elon Musk is the owner and the founder of Tesla Motors. Now Tesla could be a premium luxury sedan or a supercar, but it is completely environment friendly. Therefore, we need more people like Elon Musk who are playing complementary roles to the new age global platforms, who are exclusively invested in creating new technologies and platforms. Deep space explorations की हम बात करें तो वहाँ पे भी innovations की बहुत ज़रूरत है. Because in the future, who knows, maybe we may need to colonize Mars, because obviously population explosion and the burden of 7 billion people has been borne by the earth, Mother Earth, for a very long period of time. So why not? Probably 100 years down the line, colonizing Mars would actually become a But when I mentioned intellectual property rights, I also you can also include that India's intellectual property rights and land reforms have not culminated yet, have not reached their final point, and therefore India's membership to global bodies like APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Corporation, has also been blocked right now. Why? Is because of faulty and shaky IPR laws, and also because of incomplete labor reforms. So when you don't have access to global markets, there is not much incentive for innovation. So you can talk about that. You can talk about social welfareism also, because local demand can also be boosted through a lot of innovation, because when you have higher disposable incomes through employment generation, obviously the demand for goods and services also goes very high. So in this regard also, you can state that this actually attacks the objective of social welfareism, and innovation becomes a precondition for that. Right? You can talk about the changing structure of bricks manufacturing trade, which also was fostered by technological intensity. Right? You can talk about economic gardening initiatives that offer specialized services. Okay? You can talk about the expanding existing firms with a strong growth potential, small and medium scale enterprises, जिनको अगर आप seed funding देंगे तो they can also come up with local technologies, right? So what is the road ahead and what are the challenges? First of all, first and foremost, counterfeiting and piracy need to be addressed, because it is this counterfeiting and piracy which will discourage innovation, which will discourage researchers to put their heart and soul into it, right? You can also talk about reduction of anti-competitive product market regulations, because as long as such market regulations are there, obviously incentivization of innovation will not occur. Okay, you can talk about low level of restriction on FDI, because it is important as it can improve cross-border knowledge transfers. You can talk about how having stable macroeconomic conditions becomes a sine qua non for innovation. So there are two strands of innovation. One is welfareism and the other is in the arena of profit making as well as developing new inputs and technologies. You can also talk about how terrorism can also be tackled by using that. You can talk about how environment friendly technologies can assume importance and come to the forefront. You can also talk about how labor force productivity can also come up. You can also inject an element of IPR, inject an element of India's membership to global forums like APEC, talk about alternative sources of energy, talk about wind power, talk about INDCs. So these are the order points. ये मसाला है आपके ऐसे का. अब इसको formulate करके लिखना आपका काम है. I hope and I wish that this lecture, this first installment of GS essay preparation was helpful for you, and that it goes a long way in securing better marks for you in the future. So in the next installment, we'll be discussing more essays. So keep a watch on A. Shah's IS Institute. Keep visiting the website regularly. Subscribe to our programs and initiatives. Also log on to our resources page so that you get more and more such free resources available for you. Thank you. Have a good day.